Hello, everyone, and welcome in to Pick and Roll with the Presley Bros. Here with another late night episode. If you're watching online right now on YouTube, yeah, you see that Dalton is not with me here. You're missing that bald head right next to me. Dalton is on a trip with his youth group this weekend, and he was not able to be with me here tonight. So we miss Dalton as always. And if you're on podcast, you can't see, but now you know that Dalton is not with us. So it's just me, Tucker, here tonight. So you got to deal with just me, but we'll make it through here. It's another late night episode. Had some things to do tonight. We're just now able to get to this episode, but really appreciate you joining in. Really, really do. Thank you so much for the support and tuning in. Share this with your family, friends, like, rate, subscribe. We'd really, really appreciate it. But we're enjoying doing this, and we appreciate you tuning in. I'm hoping to get this episode done in about 40 to 45 minutes, maybe even less, because I'm tired. But I'm looking forward to talking about college basketball still here tonight. Um, Look, there's a lot of places we could go, but I wanted to start off tonight looking at some possible chaos coming in college basketball. It's already been an awesome season filled with some upsets, filled with ups and downs for a lot of teams, and I think there is a lot more chaos coming this season. We still have 2 months left, pretty much until the NCAA tournament. And so there's a lot of games coming up. Still, really, some of the biggest games in all of the conferences have yet to happen. Some are happening this weekend, some are happening next weekend. But man, we've got a lot of college basketball left, and I think we're in for a treat. I think we're in for a just a chaotic finish to the season and chaotic NCAA tournament. We talked about in our last episode. Dalton and I looked at um, the NCAA tournament last year not being as exciting as in past years. Like there wasn't as many upsets. I think one of the few upsets was McNeese State over Clemson. There wasn't really many other huge upsets last year. All the one seeds made the Final Four, and so it was kind of just a rather tame NCAA tournament. As tame as can be when it comes to the NCAA tournament. I mean, there's always excitement, but there wasn't as many upsets and shocking things. I do not expect that to hold this year, right? I think last year was a one-off, even in this era of NIL and transfer portal where things are changing. I still think that the NCAA tournament is going to deliver in terms of excitement and thrill and upsets. I see it coming this year. I see some surprise teams making runs. We talked about that in our last episode. I see, some big time upsets coming. Um, that's just me. That's just what I'm predicting this year, just because of what's happened so far this season and what I expect to continue to happen. So just consider, like the SEC. Last year the SEC was a really, really good conference. I mean, one of the best conferences that we have ever seen. Like 13, 14 teams made the NCAA tournament. It was a incredible historic season for the SEC. And we had really good teams in SEC last year, like Florida. Florida was a really good team. Alabama was a really good team. Um, Auburn was a really, really good team last year as well. And you don't really have that this year in the SEC. Like there are some good teams in the SEC, but there are no like elite teams, and they are just beating up on each other. And we kind of predicted this, that like it was just going to be a fight to the finish here. And I was looking at the SEC standings before I came on here, and it's insane. What we're seeing here. Just 4 games, into the SEC schedule, there are no undefeated teams left in the SEC. Right, there are none. Vanderbilt got absolutely destroyed the other night against Texas. I say absolutely destroyed. They got beat by 16, but they got beat by Texas, who's a team that wasn't looking great. But Texas has now beaten Alabama and Vanderbilt in its last 2 games. One that game at Alabama was again at Alabama. The one at against Vanderbilt was at home, but still, you've got Texas, who was not looking like a great team, is now they're 2-2 in conference play. They've lost 2 games or they've won, you know, they were in danger of going 0-4, playing Alabama and Vanderbilt, but they beat both of those teams. You've got teams like Kentucky, who was supposed to be, like an elite team this year to make a Final Four run. They're 2-2 in the league, and it took a miracle, folks. I don't know. I'm going to talk more about this in a second, but the way they beat LSU the other night was just insane. They could honestly be 1-3 in the league right now, a team that had like Final Four hopes at the beginning of the season. Um, you got teams like Auburn who are underperforming. They're 1-3 in SEC play with some crazy losses as well. Um, you know, Florida started off with a loss against Missouri. It's bounced back with 3 wins. They're 3-1 now in SEC play. Texas A&M didn't look to be a great team, but they're 3-1 and took Tennessee to overtime at Tennessee and lost that game. That's their only SEC loss. But looking at the league here, you've got 5 teams tied for first place right now with 3-1. It's Vandy, Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, A&M, and Florida all at 3-1. And like it's going to be a race to the finish here. Alabama, several teams here at 2-2. Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all at 2-2, and then several at 1-3, and one is LSU is at 0-4. But man, I'm just using the SEC as an example for, the chaos that's happening here because again, you've got teams who were expected to win the league who are really not doing good. You've got teams like Vandy who are predicted to be, kind of in the middle tier, the lower tier, and they're at the top of the league right now. You've got some surprise teams like Texas A&M who are doing pretty good. And it's just gonna be crazy. I mean, like this finish, we're just 4 games into the SEC schedule and nobody's undefeated. There's not a single undefeated team, and it's just gonna be a crazy finish here in the SEC. And I think it's the product of again not having a ton of like elite teams and just having a bunch of good teams, and they're just gonna beat up on each other all season long. And I'm looking around the country, you know, um, this past week, just some of the most insane finishes. And this is what I'm talking about. This is college basketball chaos, man. Like this is what you want to see. Um, on Wednesday night it was. There were 2 insane finishes. I don't know if you saw this, but Kentucky looked like they were gonna lose to LSU, and I mean, if they did, man, we'd be certainly talking about this and, just about how, Mark Pope may be on his way out, but they survived. I mean, there was, like, 1 second left on the clock. They throw a full court pass. It's completed to Malachi Moreno. He turns around, he hits the game-winning shot. They were down by 1 point. So they threw it all the way down to about the free throw line, about the elbow, I think it was, maybe a little bit beyond that. He throws the shot up and it goes in at the buzzer, and Kentucky beats LSU at LSU. To be honest, Kentucky has no business losing to LSU, but they should have lost that game. It took a miracle. But that's the chaos that I'm talking about, that type of stuff. But if that wasn't enough, there was another buzzer beater that night, SMU, and I'm drawing a blank now on who they were playing. Let me look this up here. But SMU was playing Virginia Tech, and they were playing at home. And hey, Virginia Tech has shown to be a pretty solid team this year. But they're down at the end of the game. SMU is, and they pass the ball in, and I can't remember who hit the game winner, and I don't know why I didn't look this up before I got in here. But let me remind you guys who this was. I want to say it was Boopy Miller actually, which is a great name. But anyways, Miller got the ball, and I mean, there wasn't a lot of time left. And he's at half court and he throws up a runner. I mean, it was like a floater from half court and he drills it for the win. They were down by 2 points. And they ended up winning the game 77-76. And he hit this game winner from half court, and just 2 insane finishes to to cap the night there on Wednesday night. And that's what I'm talking about with the chaos in college basketball. It's just awesome to see these type of finishes. Um, I know not many people keep up with South Alabama basketball. I live in Mobile, Alabama. That's where South Alabama is located. And we went out to a South Alabama game last night. South Alabama versus Arkansas State. Give a little love to these guys who in the Sun Belt who don't get talked about a whole lot. But this game was absolutely insane. It was back and forth all night long. Arkansas State would take a lead. South Alabama would fight back, take a lead. And in the second half, it looked like South was going to finally take this over and kind of win the game, running away. They were up by like 10 with, around 10 minutes to go. I would say maybe a little bit less than that, 8 or 9 or 10 points they were leading by. Arkansas State just kept hitting some beautiful shots. Speaking of amazing names, they have a guy, Arkansas State, named Royal Blue Smith. And this dude can shoot lights out. He was hitting some big shots, got them back in the game. Um, and it was a really really good game, and it looked like at the end, I'm just typing this back up to get the box score and stuff up, but um, it looked like at the end that Arkansas State was going to win it. They were up by 4 with just like you know under a minute left to go in the game, and it wasn't looking good. But South Alabama kept fighting. They have a player named Chase Harris who dropped 38. And I mean, he was just anything he wanted last night, he got. Driving to the hoop in particular, he was just attacking. He was crazy good. But they kept fighting, and with like just 2 or 3 seconds left, they hit a 3 pointer to tie it up. I think that they had gotten a free throw to cut it to a 3 point lead when they were down by 4. Got the ball back and hit a three with like 3 seconds left. It went to OT. And in OT, South Alabama outlasted Arkansas State, and that was another really good game. And I'm just want to give some love to those Sun Belt guys, and it's just about the chaos. That was a chaotic ending with that 3 pointer going down for South Alabama, getting it to OT. Um, so I really do see a lot of chaos coming, and I think about other conferences where you've got teams like Nebraska who in the Big Ten who nope, I don't think anybody saw Nebraska coming and being like a top 10 team and competing in the Big Ten, although that was Dalton's bold prediction. And you've got them already taking down the likes of Michigan State, and they've taken down Illinois. And it's awesome to see those type of teams make a run in their conference. But listen, there's no doubt Nebraska's going to lose. Like at some point, they're going to lose and probably lose to somebody, that they're not supposed to. We saw Wisconsin beating Michigan this past week at Michigan, a team that did not look very good in the non-conference, losing some games that didn't look really good. And now you've got them beating one of the hottest teams, best teams in the country. Penn State took Michigan to the wire in the Big Ten. It took a last second shot for them to pretty much, just failed in that last possession there to lose to Michigan. And so there's just chaos and other conferences too, and so I think this is just going to be an awesome finish. And I think what's happening this year is you got Arizona who's at the top and they look really, really good. I'm be honest, man. Arizona looks like one of the best teams of the last several years, honestly, right now. They are looking incredible. Um, but they're in a really, really tough Big 12. They're going to lose some games. There's no doubt about it. They're going to lose some games. It's coming. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to lose like 6 or 7, but they're going to lose a few games. But Arizona looks really, really good. But all these other teams have shown a lot of vulnerability, right? Like all of these top teams have shown that they have some work to do. That there's going to be games where they may be down and get beat. Like Iowa State this past week, they got absolutely handled by Kansas, and Kansas had not looked good. Iowa State came into the game going 16-0, and I picked Iowa State to win that game, and Kansas just absolutely throttled them I mean, just limited them in every way. And it looked like Iowa State's offense was kind of back to what they were, have used to be, have been in the past. And they just got absolutely handled, but they were one of the best teams in the country, you know? UConn has shown some vulnerability. I mean, Seton Hall took them to the wire the other night. They've already lost a game this season. Michigan, we already talked about them losing to Wisconsin. Purdue got absolutely handled by Iowa State at home. They've had some other close calls. Duke lost to Texas Tech, has had some close calls in the ACC against some, inferior competition. Houston has had some close calls. I'm talking about all these top teams here. There's all of these teams have shown vulnerability, and even Arizona had a really really close game against UCLA. Had a pretty close game against Florida to start the season. And again, I think they're going to get clipped at some point. And you can keep going down the line. Like, Nebraska again has not shown a ton of vulnerability, but there have been some close games, and they're gonna take some losses. There's no doubt. Gonzaga got throttled by Michigan by 40. Had a close call against Seattle, which that game's coming up again. And again, that adds to the chaos. Seattle taking Gonzaga to the OT at Gonzaga a couple weeks ago. That game's happening again here on Saturday, I believe. Vandy just got beat. That rounds out the top 10. Got whooped by Texas. So like you look at all these teams, and there's no team out there that you kind of look at and it's like, yeah, there's no doubt that this team is like, well, maybe you could say this about Arizona, like that this team is head and shoulders above everybody else. But most of these teams, it's like they've got some vulnerability and they've got some games coming ahead that you look at. It's like there's no way they're going to make it through that unscathed. And we talked about some really, really good mid-major teams the other day, and I see some of these teams making a run, right? And I also see kind of like a couple seasons ago where Alabama made the Final Four as a 4 seed, NC State made the Final Four as an 11 seed. I see that coming this year, right? One or the other is going to happen where there's like a Cinderella run where one of these teams like St. Louis that we talked about the other night, or George Mason, one of these teams is going to make it to the Final Four, make it really far, or there's going to be one of these like power conference teams that kind of comes out of nowhere and it like maybe has a bad finish to the season, but like makes a run in the tournament by getting super hot. Um, I think one of those things is going to happen. There's going to be chaos, and I'm just looking forward to some more crazy finishes, some exciting games. And I'm telling you guys, like some of the biggest games of the conference seasons and all of the conferences have not happened. And there's still some non-conference games like Duke's playing Michigan in February. So there's going to be a lot of chaos coming, and I think we're going to see some upsets. You're going to see some teams losing to teams they're not supposed to lose to, and I'm really excited. I'm here for it, man. I love college basketball and the chaos. This is why I love college basketball. Is it's so unpredictable. There are so many crazy things that happen. What you least expect, it ends up happening, and I am really really looking forward to what we have coming up with the chaos here in college basketball. Let me know what you think about that. If you think some more chaos is coming, if you think that the season's been exciting so far, or what the season's been lacking, but really, I'm looking forward to the rest of this season. So, let's move on now. Talking about something that's honestly just pitiful, is this college basketball betting scandal. I'm sure most of you have probably seen this by now, but um, to kind of sum it up, pretty much there's just gambling ring that has pretty much been betting on games that have been fixed, and there have been several um, college basketball players who have been involved in this scandal. And basically, what's happening is point shaving is what they call it, where some players were involved in this betting scandal where they were paid to pretty much underperform in particular halves of games to not cover a spread. So, for example, like a player may be approached by somebody and they'd say, "Hey, man, like you need to tank in this first half so that we can, cover this spread. We'll give you 10K if you do that." And so these college basketball players were, playing terrible in particular halves in order to help these people cover a spread and then they were getting paid for that because, these people were winning, crazy amounts of money, for they're placing crazy amounts of money on these games. And, of course, when they hit on their bets, they're getting these large payouts. And um, it's honestly just it's kind of crazy. But just look at a couple quotes from this article. ESPN put out an article, inside six college basketball games the feds say were fixed. And so it says this. Here's one quote: in a 70-page indictment unsealed Thursday, federal prosecutors allege that a gambling ring bribed 39 NCAA basketball players on 17 Division I basketball teams to fix dozens of games over the 23, 24, and 24-25 seasons. So we're looking at not just like a couple games, not just a couple players. We're looking at a widespread gambling scandal here where almost 40 players are involved in fixing these games, like tanking in games, to fix these games and to win these spreads for these betters. 17 Division I basketball teams. And if you go on this article, well, let me read this other one. Listen to this quote. While it's unclear how much overall was bet, the indictment shows the gambling ring wagered at least $3.6 million on the first half and full game spreads of college games. The two games that saw the most money wagered were 458,000 on Towson to cover the first half spread against North Carolina A&T in February of 24, and 424,000 on Kent State to cover the first half spread against Buffalo on February 27th, 2024. Both bets won. Um, and I was reading another article yesterday where, it was kind of detailing, some of these players who were involved, and basically, some of the conversations they were having with these guys who were leading this gambling ring. And it's honestly just insane, what's happening here, manipulating these kids and giving them this money so that they can get more money, as they're placing these bets on these games. And, I read this article about these players, and like one game, for example, there was a player who was terrible in the first half of a game to cover this spread. Like the spread was, let's say 7.5, to be down by 7.5 in one half. And this player just played terrible in the first half, and sure enough, they're down by like 15. So the spread, if you betted that they would lose by more than 7.5 in one half, well, then you won because they were down by like 15. When the second half, he comes out and he scores like 20, and just goes off in the second half. And I get that like some players can have bad halves, but like this was clearly intentional where these players are having bad halves, and then like they turn it on in another half when it doesn't really, the bet's not doesn't matter, um so stuff like that is happening. And you can go and look, you can go look at this, like this article kind of it talks about some of these games that were bet on. So Robert Morris versus Northern Kentucky in February of 24. Nickel State versus McNeese State in February of 24. Georgetown versus DePaul. That's a big conference game in the Big East, February 24th, 2024. Tulane versus East Carolina, February 2024. Fordham versus Duquesne, February 2024. It looks like a lot of these are happening in February 24 here, but I don't think that's the only time these things happen. But man, it's honestly, it's just sad, that this is taking place, and that betting has and gambling has taken such a I guess a stride with so many people, and gained so much ground. Like so many people are placing bets on games. And like, let me just say this. I know some people are going to disagree with this, but like I would encourage you, stay as far away as you can from betting and gambling. It is such a time and money waster. And I've never heard a story where it's like, gambling has just really helped this person's life, or has really, really built this organization up, or helped this team or whatever. It always destroys lives. It destroys organizations, companies. It's just not a good thing. And it's just this pursuit of money, and it's ridiculous. Like that's all that these people care about is money, and they'll do whatever they can do to get it. even if it means, manipulating college basketball players and getting these kids involved in these bets. And it's just sad that some of these people have to stoop this low to get these kids involved in ruining games, ruining the spirit of competition. And I can't stand this stuff. It's just a leave the game alone. Let these kids play. Let these kids compete at the highest level with no cheating, no scandals or anything. We got these guys who are greedy and only want money, and they come in and ruin these games. And from people on the outside watching these games, it's like, some may say, well, this is not, like it's not like affecting me. Like I didn't know that it was happening during the time. Um, but still, I don't know how you could not look back now. And if you were at those games, you saw those games, how you couldn't be frustrated and angry. Like some of these kids weren't even really playing. Like this wasn't even a real game, honestly, because these players were fixing it right at the I won't say command, I guess, but like at the suggestion of these people who were, placing bets on these games. And, it's just so sad that this kind of stuff happens. I would just encourage you, stay away from gambling, stay away from betting. It will only suck you in, and it will really, really tear you apart. And I just try to encourage everybody to be a good steward of the things you're given by God, and don't waste money and time on betting. Just enjoy the games. And this is the danger. This is one of the dangers of it is is 40 college players being involved, many, many people being indicted, and it's just not a good look for these teams and for these players and all of those involved. And you've got just all these investigations going on. This is not what we want for college basketball, especially not in the middle of an awesome season so far. We don't want anything tainting it. And it's just crazy that this is kind of taken center stage here the last couple of days. And I can't stand it, man. And, you know, let me say a word here about the players who were involved. Part of me wants to feel really bad for them because I look at them and I'm thinking like, listen, if I'm 18, 19, 20 years old and somebody's offering me $10,000 or 20K to fix one game, you know, I may sit there and think about that for a little bit, 'cause that's a lot of money. And I'm thinking about some of these kids who may have grown up in like poverty and maybe didn't have, as much. And, they're being thrown this money right in front of their faces, $20,000. That could really help them out, change their lives. And some of them are not going to make it to the NBA. And so maybe they're thinking, hey, I just play bad in one half. Like, what's the big deal? I'll get the money from this. Um, so from that standpoint, I look at these guys who are a part of this and I'm like, shame on you who are running this gambling ring and preying on these vulnerable players and trying to get these kids to fix games and give them money. It's just ridiculous. On the other hand, I think about the players and I'm like, guys, you got to know, like, don't be involved with that. Like, you've got to know that at some point it's going to find you out. Like, this is going to come to light at some point. I don't know why they thought that it wouldn't, to be so naive to think that this was just going to pass by and like they weren't going to get caught. It's going to come to light. And part of me wants to not feel bad for them because it's like, man, you're on scholarship. You've got a lot going for you playing college basketball. I don't care where you're playing. Like, it's a privilege to play in college basketball and to travel to all of these places and play in front of thousands of people and to have your name on the back of your jersey, to have a school on the front of your jersey, to play for something bigger than yourself. And you risk it all, right? You risk it all by taking this money, which is, obviously is not legal, right? And it's like, are you not thinking about your future and about what the ramifications of your actions here? And so, part of me feels bad for him, part of me doesn't. It's like you got to be better thinkers than that. You've got to be able to reason and think, and like it's not worth it. I mean, this money is not worth it. This is the last word I'll say on this. Like, so many people are just chasing the money, chasing the dollar. Life is not all about money, right? It's not going to make you fulfill you in the end anyways, and that's what we're so many people are chasing, and clearly these people are. And it's just it's just a root of all kinds of evil, as the Bible says. And got to be careful. There's a lot of dangers out here, and just can't stand to see this. But unfortunately, that's what's going on here, here in this scandal. And there's a lot more articles out there. Just type in college basketball betting scandal. You're going to see a ton of stuff coming up. So um, I'll move on from that. I've said my piece on that, but had to say that. Now let me finish off here. Hey, we're at 30 minutes. I think I'm going to finish here within the 40 minutes. I said 40, 45 minutes. Let's get to some game predictions here this weekend. And honestly, by the time that I'm able to clip some videos, this is the games will have already happened. But still going to look into some of these games tomorrow. Really, there's not a ton of big games actually. But the biggest one I would say is BYU at Texas Tech. This is a top 15 matchup here between some really, really good teams. And BYU and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is ranked 15th. BYU is ranked 11. BYU has had some really close calls here the last couple games. They skated by Utah by 5 at Utah. They barely beat TCU the other night at home by 6. They were down at halftime in that game. Dalton is really, really high on BYU. And, I get it, like having AJ Devonsa and Keba Keita and Richie Saunders and other guys, Robert Wright. They've got some good players on that team. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not as high on this team. I think with that starting 5 that they've got, especially with a star like AJ Devonsa, I think they should be better. They shouldn't be having all these close calls, but they are. And I think it's going to catch up to them this weekend. I think I'm predicting Texas Tech to win this game, especially because it's at Texas Tech. It's going to be tough. And as good as AJ Devonsa is, he's actually leading the league in scoring, I believe. He's averaging 23.1 points per game. I still think JT Toppin is an overall better player. He's averaging 21 and 11 this year. And that is just an incredible clip for both points and rebounds there. But Texas Tech has played really, really well down the last several weeks. I know they lost they did lose to Houston, but they were right in that game. The game was at Houston a couple weeks ago. They only lost by 4 points. They were right in it, really could have won that game. Christian Anderson was really, really hounded and did not play well. And I think that kind of doomed them in some late turnovers. But they did barely get by Colorado. Colorado, the game was at Colorado. They only beat Colorado by 2. They bounced back and beat Utah by 14. So, they've kind of had some ups and downs here, but I'm predicting Texas Tech to win this game. I don't like the way that BYU is trending at this point. I just don't. I don't know. They've been, to me, skating on thin ice, and I think Texas Tech is the team that's going to clip them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe going on the road and playing a high caliber opponent. Like this is BYU's really first high caliber Big 12 opponent, and this is going to start a run of some tough games coming up, because after this you're playing Utah again. It's kind of crazy that they're playing Utah so quickly again. But then you've got Arizona, Kansas, and Houston within your next 4 games. And so then you got to play Arizona and Iowa State back to back coming up. And so like BYU, this is the start of some really, really tough games ahead. And I think they're going to get clipped here by Texas Tech, being at Texas Tech. They haven't played a team like them in the Big 12 yet. I'm not saying they haven't played a team like Texas Tech. I'm talking about in Big 12 play. This is definitely the best team that they've played so far. And I think Texas Tech has played pretty well. Again, they did kind of struggle with Colorado at Colorado, but they did win that game. I think this is going to be a good game. I predict a close win by Texas Tech. Right now, ESPN's predicting the same thing there. Analytics predicts Texas Tech to be the favorite at 50.4%. That's all. So it's a pretty much a toss up here between these two, according to ESPN analytics. Um, Looking here at some of the stats, Texas Tech averages 83 a game, BYU 87. Uh, so edge there to BYU. Defensive wise, edge to BYU too. Points against 73 for Texas Tech, 68.8 for BYU. Field goal percentages in BYU's favor, rebounds in BYU's favor, assists do go to Texas Tech. So you kind of look down this and it's like, man, BYU looks to be the better team. And maybe they overall they are. But because this game's at Texas Tech, I'm going to pick Texas Tech. If it was at BYU, honestly might still pick Texas Tech, even though with these stats point BYU's favor. I really like what Texas Tech can throw at you too with JT Toppin, first and foremost. But you got Christian Anderson, you got Donovan Atwell, you've got Lawan Watts. They've got several players that I think can respond to what BYU throws at you. And I think this could be where BYU gets their first loss in conference play. Listen, there's no way anybody's going unscathed in the Big 12. It's just not happening with just how elite these teams are. And I think Texas Tech has played pretty well in most of their big games. The Purdue game notwithstanding, but I'm going to pick them to win this game. I think JT Toppin's going to be the difference. And I think they're gonna beat BYU. That's my prediction for that game. The other game I want to predict here is Florida at Vanderbilt. Both these teams are 3-1 in SEC play. They're at the top of the standings. Kind of already talked about that. So this is kind of the battle for the top of the SEC. Florida at Vanderbilt. So the game's at Vandy. Um, I think it's going to be a really, really good game. If you look at the rosters, Florida's roster is better, and they've got better players. I'll look at Thomas Houck, who's SEC Player of the Year candidate. You've got, Ruben Chinyelu, and you've got, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the other big man. I don't know why I can't. Alex Condon, goodness. Alex Condon. You got Boogie Flan. Looking at them, that is a better roster than what you've got with Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt has far exceeded expectations, right? On paper, it doesn't really matter. It matters what you're putting out there on the court. And Vanderbilt has been really, really solid. They have some really solid metrics, some of the best, actually the best in the SEC so far. They've looked really, really good. I'm going to pick Florida to win this game, though. I still just kind of doubt this Vandy team. I think they're a good team, but I think by the end of it, they're going to have, 5, 6 losses in SEC play. I think that they're a good but not great team. And, they beat Alabama. Hats off to them for beating Alabama at Vanderbilt. But I think, had Alabama been healthy, they would have won that game, Alabama. Vanderbilt got absolutely handled by Texas the other night at Texas. And again, I know this is at Vandy, but I like Florida in this game with their size and their athleticism. I think can overwhelm Vanderbilt. I'm curious to see how they'll handle. I think that the key is how they're going to handle Ruben Chinyelu and Alex Condon, the big men, and Thomas Houck for that matter, pretty big guy himself, how they're going to handle those three. Because Alabama's not a great rebounding team, but Alabama did really well rebounding against Vanderbilt. And that was without their starting center, Alabama. Rebounded really well. And so like you throw a team who's got some really good rebounders in Chinyelu and Condon, like how are they going to handle those guys? And can you limit them on the offensive boards? Can you limit those guys, in terms of getting buckets, right? And I just like the way that Florida's going right now in the last couple games. Let me look up their schedule real quick. Florida has been playing solid. They started off with a loss to Missouri in SEC play, okay, but then they bounced back, beat a top 25 Georgia by 15, then absolutely trounced Tennessee, and then absolutely trounced Oklahoma. So 3 double-digit wins back to back to back. I really like the way this team is trending, and maybe they're starting to catch their stride, right, and get into a groove of things. I like where they're going. I love Thomas Houck, just an absolute stud. He's played really, really well this season. I think they're just going to get the best of Vanderbilt. It's going to be a packed house, really great crowd. It's going to be a good game, but I think Florida's just going to be a little too much for Vanderbilt. It kind of is going to remind me, I guess, a little bit Auburn winning there last year, and Vanderbilt was, doing really, really good, and they played well in that game, but fell short to a really highly rated Auburn team. Um, Vanderbilt's ranked at 10. They're ahead of Florida. I'd expect after this game that they kind of, Vanderbilt's going to fall down to like, somewhere in like the 15 to 17 range, and Florida will move ahead of them. Um, I just like Florida in this game, and I'm just continuing to doubt Vanderbilt. And hey, call me a hater of Vandy. I'm not trying to be. I just think that Florida's a better team, and they're going on the better trajectory at this point. But that's all we've got. Let me say one other thing here. Next Saturday is a huge college basketball Saturday. This is probably the biggest Saturday we've had so far in conference play next Saturday. Listen to some of these games. Tennessee at Alabama, UNC at Virginia, Illinois at Purdue, and Houston at Texas Tech. Those are all coming up next Saturday. All huge games that are going to have some big ramifications in their conference races. I'm really, really looking forward to breaking down those games next week and reacting to those. But really, really appreciate you being here, and hope you enjoyed the episode here tonight. Missing Dalton, but he'll be back here next week. Appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy your college basketball Saturday tomorrow.